Hey everyone, so this is an astrological highlight video taking us through the new moon in Scorpio. If you've never joined me before, welcome. These videos are done for tropical astrology. I just don't have time for sidereal, so right now they're all in tropical. And I'm pulling this chart for the exact time of the peak of the new moon. So you can see that down here at the bottom. It's for November 13th at 1:26 a.m. Pacific time, so adjust for your time zone. I'm really talking about the 12th into the 13th, just because we have some astrology that is occurring leading up to and going into the new moon, and then that is going to be felt in the aftershocks, we could say, after this. So to say that this new moon is intense is such an understatement. While we're still in the energy of Mars opposing Uranus, right, so we see that here, Mars right here, opposing Uranus right here. We're actually going to be talking a lot about basically like this configuration that is between, you can see these planets all going head to head, right? They're going toe to toe, and that's what we're going to be talking about. So while we're still in the energy of Mars opposing Uranus, we have the Sun, Moon, and Mars coming together in a conjunction, and all of them taking turns kind of going through this car wash of opposing Uranus. But it's happening so in such a short period of time that it's really like we're going to be feeling and experiencing this. It's not like one hits and then you feel the next feeling and the next feeling. This is all going to be felt together, right? So if you've ever joined me before for any of my other videos, you've probably heard me say something like this, which is once we have an exact so you see right here, these are the degrees. For those of you who are not familiar, those numbers mean the degrees, right? And when we have an exact degree, once you have that to the minute, right? And these are the minutes right here. When you have that, we're already inside the energy. Like you're already in it, right? You're in the soup. So it's that point of leading up to a transit where it feels more pressurized, and that's where we really start to feel it. That's why people can talk about saying like, oh, I was feeling the new moon energy a day or two before, or the stuff that I heard astrologers talking about I was feeling like a day or two before or a day or two after, because there's this lingering effect, but leading up to it, we start to see the themes or feel the themes of what is coming up, right? So just wanted to put that out there for any of you who are just not aware of that. So, while a good portion of this activity is happening in the late hours of the 12th, right, and into the wee hours of the 13th, we'll have already been feeling this, right? So the Mars Uranus opposition, I talked about that yesterday. So that's Mars right there. That's messy. And and speaking of messy, and then circling Uranus. So that Mars Uranus opposition, I talked about that yesterday in a video. If you missed that, I will link that at the end so you can kind of get the full picture of like what was leading into this, because I think it would be helpful if you're kind of like, man, I'm really feeling this intensity and some of the stuff I'm going to talk about in this video, then you might want to go back and watch that because you might feel like it's relevant in some way. So I'm going to keep on doing this erasing because I'm going to be scribbling all over the place. So they're only separated by 1 degree, and you can see that here, right? So it's at 22 and 21. Anytime we are looking at any of the outer planets like Uranus, when we're looking at that, it takes a little bit longer for that energy to push off. So 1 degree away separation, we're definitely still feeling that, just so you know. So we're still in it. Now, once we hit that new moon, which is what this chart is pulled for, the sun and moon will be opposing Uranus by 1 degree. You can see they're at 20, this is at 21, so you can imagine that they're kind of like teaming up and they're opposing on this side. And then we see that Mars is still, like I said, by 1 degree, opposing it over here on this side, almost like an opposition sandwich. So after the moon and the sun oppose Uranus exactly, right, the sun will be headed towards Mars to get closer and closer. So it looks like they're pretty close now, right? 20 degrees, 22 degrees. It's actually going to take a few days for them to become exact, but we'll feel that buildup, right? We're going to talk about this more as time goes forward, but we're going to talk about that more. But that's what's called a cazimi. You've probably heard that mentioned about about Mercury. You've probably heard of Mercury cazimi if you've been listening to astrologers for any given amount of time. And a Mars cazimi will only happen every couple of years. So we'll get into more of the details of that. I'm really just trying to give you guys the kind of overview of what we're going to be talking about and what we're going to be laying out. So now let me, again, like I said, I'm going to be doing this erasing quite a bit. Want to use a different color. I'm going to be using different colors too. So later in the evening on Monday, so right, this is Monday, right? That's what this chart is actually pulled for. It's pulled for Monday the 13th. So later in the evening, we're going to have the moon, because the moon is going to be, as the day progresses, she's going to be coming along. I don't know why my app does this. So it'll be moving along, coming into Sagittarius. And once she joins into Sagittarius, she's immediately going to be in a square with Saturn in Pisces. Again, I don't know why that does that. It's not like I'm double tapping my pencil, but okay. So she'll immediately be in a square. So not really like the fuzzy, cozy maybe feeling that we want at the end of what could very well feel like an intense day. And not only that, but an intense start to the week. I know a lot of us have very different kinds of jobs. However, a lot of people consider the start of their week Monday. Okay, it's Monday, hit the reset button, now I'm starting my week. Well, this isn't exactly the start of the week that maybe we would want, right? It's kind of like the stereotypical, like, oh, it's Monday, right? So, so there's that. Now, there is something that I do want to mention that I think is kind of helpful here. And we'll talk about this again. We're gonna be going into all of this more and more. But we have an assistive transit because we'll see the moon once she's at this particular. Once she's at this particular area in Sagittarius, she's gonna be moving to conjoin with Mercury, right? And once she does that, they'll both be at the same degree. Now, it won't be exact because it won't be to the minute, but they will be in a sextile, which is a friendly aspect, with Venus in Libra. And so we will talk about that. So that's going to be happening on the 14th. And then we also will see, the moon she moves pretty quickly, so she'll keep on going. And then we'll see just Mercury in an exact sextile with Venus. And that will happen on the 15th. So that's when we'll see that. So there is a little bit of something that feels assistive here. But now that you have the lay of the land, we can go ahead and start to break this down. Starting with this new moon, right? So this new moon that is occurring here, let's see, there we go. I don't know why I did that, is occurring in Scorpio. And the moon itself, when she is in Scorpio, she is at detriment, meaning that it's just not the best place for her because for many reasons, but one of them can be just because of how intense it can really feel to our more sensitive selves, right? So with how deeply private we can say that Scorpio is and can be, we might really be feeling this internally, right? Because there is a sense of privacy or secrecy or protectiveness around those more sensitive places, like the hard exoskeleton, we can say, of the scorpion, right? So, however, with this new moon opposing opposing Uranus, right? Because we know that it's opposing Uranus, and Uranus, who can be chaotic and disruptive. And then the moon is applying to a conjunction. So she's going to move along and she's going to be in conjunction with Mars right here, right? So as we move through from the point of when this chart is pulled, right, at the peak of the new moon, as it progresses, because the moon moves pretty quickly, she's going to move into this spot where she is right next to and hanging out with Mars, right? Which, that can be, I think, has the potential to be confronting, kind of in our face, and can sting. It's kind of like, it reminds me of like harsh honesty, or like harsh things that feel really inflamed even. I could see people having the experience, especially if you're awake and you're like on the East Coast, or you're further out, like let's say across the pond, you're already well into your morning or something like that. However you were experiencing the night before and how you've been experiencing this new moon, that it could bring up these feelings that feel really intense because of that Mars and the moon being together there. So that shakeup, and when I say shakeup, we could definitely associate that with Uranus, right? That shakeup could be the impetus to get us to make some kind of new change, right? Because we are talking about a new moon, some kind of new change because of what has been unearthed, right? Which we can say is part of Scorpio here. What has been unearthed as a result, right? So that could be something like where even if something comes into our realm of experience, and it could be felt, like I said, very internally, or it could be something that we experience or see externally, but somehow we get this kind of maybe shake up or rude awakening in some way that has us become present to something that pushes us towards something that we feel is now we need to start anew or make a change in some direction, right? Because we are talking about that new moon energy, right? So let me clear this up here. So anyway, this trio, right? This trio that we see, oops, there we go. This trio that we see here is going to be opposing Uranus, and that can feel really volatile and challenging. So whatever occurs externally or internally could be quite a lot, right? Because it's an opposition. Though we could really feel this and experience it relationally, because oppositions tend to be things that we experience by either projecting on others of the world, or the world or others projecting upon us, or that kind of perception coming into play, right? So it can involve others relationally in some way. Again, others or the world, right? So what we see. And of course, just thinking about this kind of opposition, especially when we have the energies that I talked about yesterday that are really, really intense and explosive that we have with Mars itself and Uranus, but now we have the feeling moon and the bright magnetic sun, and all of this coming together. We have the two luminaries coming together in this place where they're all opposing Uranus, and it being in opposition. I can't help but think that this doesn't bode well for the major conflicts abroad that we're all really aware of, right? So just making a note of that. I don't know what's going to happen. Of course, I wish for the best for everything, but it just doesn't look great, and we'll see how that really pans out. But pretty quickly after that, after the exact new moon, right, after the time of this chart, the moon, like I said, is going to be conjoining with Mars. So I think that some of this, and for those of you who are impatient with how slowly I talk, you can put this on, the next speed level up. But I think that some of us could be feeling that impulsivity with Mars, or that boiling up, or that kind of friction energy. And you might be trying to fight a feeling versus a factual situation, right? Like our stirred up emotions could be impulsive and not seeing clearly, and so jumping to conclusions or jumping forward when the moon finally moves over and moves together with Mars here. So just something that I want us to be really aware of and really careful about is just watch your impulsivity, watch your reactions, and your, if you have the impulse to act or to say or to do something, or you're feeling something, before you believe the feeling that you're feeling, you might just get really riled up and you're feeling really strongly about something. Take a beat, take a breath, do whatever you need to do, and just maybe go, okay, you know what, I'm going to wait. Because I'm going to just say that maybe I may not totally trust my feelings versus what's factual, and I may not be seeing things clearly, and maybe just more in my feeling space. And instead of believing whatever story I'm creating, I'm going to wait. I'm going to give it a couple days before I decide to reach out or to do whatever it is I'm going to do as a result. Right, so later in the day on Monday, and let me again clear this. So later in the day on Monday, we are going to have the moon, like I said, she'll be moving over in this direction, and she'll be hitting that first degree and coming into that square with Saturn here, right? It's short, right, because the moon moves so quickly. It is short, but I do think it's worth mentioning because it is this flavor at the end of the day. And after what seems like possibly a really long day, maybe a challenging day or an intense day, doesn't really feel like we get much relief, right? It's not the cozy blanket that we might want at the end of the day, or the glass of wine or whatever. This combination can feel kind of cold, kind of isolating. When we have the moon in square to Saturn, it can feel maybe a little depressive, where we can be really critical of ourselves or critical of others. And that's, that feeling of being like depressed, like not well, yes, depression, but like being depressed as in depressing something, right? Like something like that, like suppressing in that way. So I would just make some recommendations, right? So do what you can to go easy on yourself. I know that's easy to say on the outside, but just do what you can to go easy on yourself. Try to remember this at the end of the day, like, hey, this might feel a little bit more intense, or I might feel a little bit more hard on myself knowing that the moon is squaring, Saturn. You can go, oh yeah, that's right, that's happening. And so up your self-care, up your self-soothing, do what you can to relax, and introduce some, like, even small pleasures in contrast to that. I'm not saying it's going to magically make it all better, but I think that goes a long way. This is one of the ways that I work with astrology. I think it's one of the ways that we can work with astrology, is we can see, oh, there's something that is challenging that is coming up. Well, what can I do to understand that I may be experiencing that and feeling that, and so how can I work with that? What can I do to kind of the antidotes, and it's not like it's going to always alleviate everything. And as I've said before, if you've watched my videos before, it depends on your chart, right? It depends on if you have planets in these degrees here, if you have planets in these degrees here, or in these degrees here, or in these degrees here, right? In Taurus, in Pisces, in Sagittarius, and in Scorpio, in those degrees, right, you probably are going to feel them more, right? And depending on which houses they're in, that's going to give you more of the story about where in your life this is happening. So sometimes I feel like a broken record, but then I know that some people don't watch all of my videos, and so I want to make sure to give this information to anybody that comes through or that just doesn't know, right? So I was actually told recently, it was so nice, I was told recently, like, I actually am not somebody who's, like, studied this, so basically, like, please do explain it and let me know. I was like, okay, that's a good reminder. So anyway, that's what I would say. So with all of this, like, just everything we've talked about so far, with all of this intense friction-like type of energy, I'd say it would be a good time to use the energy physically. So if you're feeling like really overwhelmed by all of this and this opposition that we have going on here, and you're just really feeling it because it's just hitting your chart, or you're feeling like maybe some anxiety, or it's like, oh, it's like shaky, like too much energy, too much in your body, because Mars is really great to expel the Mars energy. A really great way to do that is by being physical. So not overdoing it, though. That's the one thing you need to watch out for, is not overdoing it. And especially because, like, also Uranus can, when it's really stimulated like that, can feel like electricity in the body, like overstimulation, or it's like making your nerves raw, like that kind of a thing. So like anxiety, right? And so going on a walk, run, working out, those can all be really great. I'd steer clear, just because of the Mars Uranus thing, I would steer clear of like extreme sports. I would steer clear of that. But anything where you can just kind of like walk or move your body, to jump on a trampoline, right? Like jump to move the energy around, do jumping jacks, do push-ups, I don't know. But that would be a really good way to push the energy through your body, especially if you're feeling it and you feel like you're a sensitive person. You're just like, oh man, I don't know why, but I'm feeling just like anxiety. I'm feeling like really agitated. I'm feeling angry for no reason. I'm feeling like, I'm impatient. Like everything's getting on my nerves. I feel just like raw, all of that, right? So this would also be a good lunation to be in more of the observer role, if it's at all possible, right? Just some other kind of stuff that I'll throw out there that may or may not be helpful. So you just notice what comes up for you internally, and then witnessing what's happening externally. Like be curious about it, just notice it, maybe take note of it, try your best. If it's something that's in your sphere, to not necessarily move into reactive mode, but take a breath and go, okay, like I kind of already know, because I watched this video or however many other videos you've watched, I kind of already know that this is going to be coming up. So here it is, I'm feeling it, right? Just know, like, okay, I already know going into this day that I might be stimulated in these ways. So try to be in more of that observer role, so you don't get caught up in the fray, so you don't get caught up in all of it, right? So after all of this, right, and let's clear this one more time. This is the last thing I'm going to talk about. I know this video is a little bit long. So after all of this, in the background, we have this buildup starting to happen, actually. So we see, and I mentioned this earlier at the beginning of the video, right? So we see this work up to the moon, which is going to be like, she's going to be moving into Sagittarius, right? Like I said, she's going to be moving into Sagittarius, and she's going to be conjoining Mercury here, right? So they're going to be in Sagittarius. And then both of them together are going to be moving into a friendly aspect, which is a sextile over here. I don't know why I keep erasing that. Into the sextile with Venus in Libra, which I really like that. It is helpful, and that's going to be happening on the 14th. As I mentioned earlier. And then we are also going to see the next day, then, you know, Mercury continues to move a little bit more forward, and it's Mercury and Venus are then in an exact sextile on the 15th. And I just think that that's some lovely assistance for communication and connections. So I don't think that it overrides all of this stuff that I've been talking about, like the new moon and all the intensity leading up to it and like coming after it, because we'll be feeling that in the days following. But if you need to have a conversation, I think that if you're looking for like when might be a better time, and you need to do that, I think that we get a little help on those days. I would say if I were looking ahead, I would probably lean towards choosing the 15th over the 14th, but like, yeah, 14th, 15th is what I'd be looking at. Now, overall, you know, like if you can wait, like for instance, there are a couple of conversations that I'm looking to have with a couple of people in my life, and I'm like, I started looking ahead at December. So I was like, maybe there's better time than December, because really just like coming off of all of this energy that we were just talking about and this opposition, and then we're going to have that square that's going to be coming over here. Just like all of this energy feels like it's still going to be in the air, right? It's still going to be there. And you know, as much as this is like nice, this is assistive quality that we have between Mercury and Venus. It's not like it's going to be able to like do the heavy lifting of, you know, busting through all of that energy and making a bright rainbow. It's just assistive. It's just helpful. So, like I said, if you really need to, go ahead and schedule like having that conversation that you need to have, if you can at all, on the 14th or 15th, as opposed to that if you're like, I can't wait till December. So do it then, right? So I hope that this feels helpful. You know, just again, not to blame it on astrology, because I don't do that, but like the eclipse really did hit me and I was all caught up, and then life got bananas. And so I'm just trying to catch up by putting out these shorter videos for the time being until I can get back onto like weekly or bi-weekly videos for you guys. So I hope that this was helpful. Definitely let me know as the year approaches the end here. I am looking ahead and trying to figure out like what I want to do differently, I have some plans for different videos that I want to start putting out after the holidays, but also, you know, I'm very curious about what you guys find helpful. Like, do you really like the bi-weekly tarot videos? Can I cut those out and no one would care about them? Do you want the monthlies, or do you prefer vice versa? Are these astrology highlight videos feeling helpful? What would feel helpful for you? Is there anything you want me to know? You feel free to DM me, feel free to put it in the comments. That's also something that I'll look at. But yeah, besides that, I just hope that this was helpful. I hope that it helps you feel prepared so that you can just kind of be aware of what might be occurring, either internally or, like I said, externally for this whole 2-day period. And like I said, it's going to carry forward. So we have other astrology to talk about for the rest of this week, and I will do that in my next video. And I will see you guys in the next one. All right. Thank you. I will see you then. Bye.